On Wednesday the 2nd of March in 2022, a 19-year-old mother named Ruthey Smith left her home in Long Beach, California as she headed towards Los Angeles. But after deciding to get into somebody's car, she would never be seen again. That evening, Ruthie was spotted near 69th Street and Figueroa, an area known for crime and human trafficking, and given her decision to delve into these illegal activities as a means of providing for her young daughter, this meant that her family feared the worst. So, as days turned into weeks, her mother desperately searched the surrounding areas, confronting dangerous individuals and pleading for help. But despite numerous flyers, searches and police investigations, there have been no confirmed sightings of Ruthie since that night. So, given the fact that 3 years have now passed with no answers, her loved ones are only left to wonder, what really happened to Ruthey Smith, and could she be California's next victim of human trafficking? Ruthie Mackenzie Smith was born on the 27th of December in 2002 in the city of San Pedro, California. According to those closest to her, from the very beginning, Ruthie's life was shaped by challenges, but by all accounts, she always made sure to face them with resilience and determination. A perfect example of this is that when she was just 16 years old, Ruthie became a mother after giving birth to her daughter Ocean. And despite her young age, she embraced motherhood with love and dedication, determined to provide the best possible life for her child. However, raising a baby as a teenager was not easy, and Ruthie constantly found herself struggling to make ends meet. She was known for her fierce independence and strong-willed nature, and those who knew Ruthie described her as intelligent, resourceful, and deeply devoted to her daughter. But it was no secret that she wanted a stable future for Ocean. And so this meant she was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. So, in an effort to support herself and her child, she would eventually decide to make a very difficult decision, one that she would later reveal to her family on Christmas Day in 2021. During the evening, Ruthie arrived late to her family's Christmas celebrations, and when questioned about her late arrival, she made a heartbreaking admission, revealing that she had been involved in sex work to provide for Ocean. It was a revelation that shocked her loved ones, but it also painted a dark picture of the struggles she had been enduring in silence. However, despite her challenges, Ruthie remained determined as always. She loved her daughter fiercely and wanted more for her future, but the weight of her circumstances was heavy. Unlike many young mothers in difficult situations, she found herself navigating a world that often felt unforgiving. So, with this in mind, it wouldn't come as too much of a shock to her friends and family when the young mother would suddenly stop responding to her messages on that fateful day in 2022. On Wednesday the 2nd of March, the 19-year-old was spotted walking along the intersection of 69th Street and Figueroa in Los Angeles, California, a location well known for its affiliation with criminal activities, before she was captured by a surveillance camera entering a vehicle. That day, Ruthie had been behaving as her usual self, determined and focused on providing for her daughter, but little did she know that something sinister was lurking around the corner. At the time, she had been living in Long Beach, but Ruthie frequently travelled between cities to expand her business prospects. So on this particular day, she left home with the intention of meeting someone in Los Angeles, though the details surrounding this meeting remain unclear. Before leaving, Ruthie had shared with her friends about her plans for the day, but eventually they started to grow concerned when she failed to respond to her messages and began ignoring phone calls. The situation then grew even more dire when Ruthie failed to return home, as well as the fact that her social media activity had completely dried up and there were no other signs of her whereabouts. So, as the days began to pass by, with still no word from Ruthie and no way to reach her, her loved ones eventually accepted that they had no other choice but to report her missing to the local police. On Friday the 4th of March, just 2 days after Ruthey Smith was last seen, her family made the heartbreaking decision to report her missing. The call was made to Long Beach Police Department, detailing how Ruthie had vanished after last being spotted near 69th Street and Figueroa in Los Angeles. For Ruthie's loved ones, critical time was already slipping away. In cases like these, the first 48 hours are often the most crucial, But despite the family providing key details about her last known location and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance, investigators were left with more questions than answers. From the start, there were no immediate signs of foul play, which led some to wonder if Ruthie had just disappeared voluntarily. However, her family knew that this was not in her character. After all, she was deeply devoted to her daughter Ocean and would never have simply walked away without contacting her loved ones first. But despite these alarming red flags, authorities did not initially classify her case as suspicious due to the lack of concrete evidence, resulting in a slow start to the investigation. Although there was some media coverage and small-scale search efforts, much of the work fell on Ruthie's family, who took it upon themselves to spread awareness. They distributed flyers, used social media to reach the public, and tirelessly pushed for answers. However, as days turned into weeks, crucial evidence was at risk of being lost. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses and street cameras was at risk of being erased, and any potential witnesses who might have seen Ruthie on March 2nd either weren't coming forward or were no longer in the area. But just as her family began to fear that hope was slipping away, new details would suddenly emerge, clues that could potentially shed light on who Ruthie may have been meeting that day, and what might have happened to her after she was last seen getting into that car. On Friday the 25th of March, over 3 weeks after Ruthie's disappearance, her case finally gained wider media attention when it was featured on local news stations in California. For her family, this coverage was long overdue. During interviews, Ruthie's loved ones expressed their frustration with the investigation, emphasizing that key witnesses had not been thoroughly questioned, and that potential leads were not being aggressively pursued by law enforcement as they should have been. One mystery that resonated with the public was the circumstances surrounding the last known sighting of Ruthie. While authorities had not officially identified a suspect, many questioned who Ruthie may have been meeting that day, and whether this person had been properly investigated. Another speculation that emerged was the possibility that Ruthie had been lured into a dangerous situation. Given the area where she was last seen, some feared that she may have fallen victim to human trafficking, a growing concern in Los Angeles where certain locations are known hotspots for such crimes. But despite these very real fears, Ruthie continued to elude authorities, leaving her family even more desperate for answers. As the weeks passed, reports of possible sightings of Ruthie began to surface, with some witnesses claiming to have seen her in different areas around Los Angeles. However, without any concrete evidence, none of these leads could be confirmed, adding to her family's anguish. So, determined to find her, Ruthie's family took matters into their own hands, using social media and flyers to spread awareness. They reached out to organizations that specialized in missing person cases, hoping to generate new leads. However, once again, despite their tireless efforts, law enforcement resources remained limited, and the investigation struggled to gain momentum. So as time passed, the leads eventually dried up, meaning that over 3 years later, Ruthey Smith still remains a missing person. Now unfortunately, as far as the official investigation goes, this is all we know for now. But thanks to the continued dedication of Ruthie's family and friends, her case still remains alive in the media as they continue their fight for answers, refusing to give up hope, despite the clear lack of assistance from local police. So with this in mind, we have to stay positive that it will only be a matter of time before the truth is revealed, providing Ruthie's family with the answers they deserve, and maybe even leading them to reunite with their loved one once and for all. However, given that Ruthey Smith has now been missing for over 3 years, alongside the incredibly troubling details that surround her case, I can't help but feel that the likelihood of her family getting any closure here is only growing weaker as time passes. So with that, let's get into some of the potential theories. Now, just before I get into the theories themselves, I first wanted to take a brief moment to acknowledge Ruthie's family, who have worked tirelessly to keep her case in the public eye. If you're watching this, then I sincerely hope I've done her story justice, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you would like me to cover any further updates to the case in a future video. At this point, I usually rattle off a few theories about what could have happened to the missing person, but I do understand that these theories can be distressing to hear, especially if you are close to the victim, so I will try my best to be as respectful as possible by refraining from going into too much detail. So with this in mind, one of the most widely considered theories is that Ruthie may have met with someone she trusted, but was ultimately harmed. Given the nature of her circumstances and the high-risk environment she was in, it's very possible that she arranged to meet someone she thought was safe, perhaps an acquaintance, a regular client, or even someone posing as a friend, only for the situation to take a dark and unexpected turn. If Ruthie had planned to meet someone that day, this person could hold key information about what happened to her, but without concrete evidence, witness testimonies, or any further surveillance footage, this remains purely speculative. It's also possible that Ruthie willingly went to meet someone, expecting nothing more than a short interaction, only for things to spiral out of control. Whether it was a sudden act of violence or a more calculated crime, the lack of communication from Ruthie after that day suggests that something happened to prevent her from ever reaching out again. So, if someone is responsible for Ruthie's disappearance, what could have been their motive? Well, another theory suggests that Ruthie may have been targeted by human traffickers operating in Los Angeles, particularly in the area where she was last seen near 69th Street and Figueroa. This location is widely known as a hotspot for trafficking and exploitation, making it a dangerous place for vulnerable individuals, especially young women involved in this line of work. Given that Ruthie had previously disclosed to her family that she was engaging in sex work to support her daughter, some fear that she may have encountered someone who intended to exploit her further. Traffickers often prey on women in desperate situations, using manipulation, coercion, and even violence to trap them in a cycle of abuse. So if Ruthie was lured by someone she trusted or deceived into meeting a trafficker, she may have been abducted and forced into a situation where she couldn't escape. Unfortunately, cases like this are not uncommon in Los Angeles. The city's massive population, proximity to major highways, and underground criminal networks make it a prime location for trafficking operations. In fact, California consistently ranks as one of the states with the highest reported cases of human trafficking, and many of these victims are young women in vulnerable positions, just like Ruthie. But before I get too carried away, as of now there is no concrete evidence inexplicably proving that Ruthie's disappearance was linked to trafficking. But the circumstances surrounding her last known location make this a very real possibility. So if this theory is correct, it raises even more unsettling questions, such as, was Ruthie specifically targeted? And more importantly, is there still a chance to find her and bring her home? Well, unfortunately, at this point there is just no way of knowing for certain. So for now, all we can really do is help spread her story to as many people as we can, in the hopes that it will only be a matter of time before the truth is finally revealed, and Ruthie's family get the closure that they so desperately deserve. Anyway, on that note, I think I'll leave this video here. But as always, if you have any other theories of your own which you think may help explain what really happened to Ruthey Smith, please leave your ideas in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for updates on these stories. Also, if you would like to hear more about the other cases mentioned in the video, feel free to check out the playlist on screen now, which features the story of Heaven McGee, as well as many other black women who have disappeared in recent years under similar circumstances.